Hi, my name is Anita Morin and I'm a decorative painter. Today I'm going to demonstrate to you a spring door tag. It's with stenciling and stamps and a different background technique, and let's get started. Okay, I have here my little Hello Spring project. It's door tags, and these are painted on a Baltic birch wood, but I cut mine on MDF wood. I just want to show you that you can do this technique on any surface. I went ahead and I painted it with warm white Americana acrylic, and we're going to use the stamps. One is from Penny Black, and it's called Divine. And the other one is Stupendous stamp, and it's called Butterflies. And I love these because you have different butterflies and sizes. So we have two little tiny ones. One's a monarch, and the other one's just a little, I'm not sure what kind of butterfly that is. So I have my wood surface. And I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to apply it on a big block. Okay, I'm going to make sure it doesn't fall off. I'm going to use the Ranger Archival ink, Jet Black. And I'm going to stand for this part just so that I can see whereabouts I'm going to apply my stamp. So I'm going to just gently apply ink to my stamp, and the way you can tell is if it's all glossy. Make sure that you have it all over. Okay, so I'm going to place my stamp straight up, and I'm going to make sure that I don't jiggle my stamp. So I'm going to just allow pressure and then remove it. And that's good. And now I'm going to take my little block. I have it somewhere over here. I'm going to take my little butterfly and apply ink. And I'm just going to place this above this one flower and allow just add pressure. And then my little monarch butterfly. Ink, and this one here went above here. Make sure you don't have ink on your fingers when you're applying it to your surface. Okay, so we're done with that. So move those aside. Okay, and I got a little bit of ink here. That's okay, we can add a little color to this. Okay. Now, the next step that we're going to do is float all along the edge here. And today I'm using Americana Media Fluid Acrylics. And I used this cerulean blue to float all along the edges. And I also, when you're doing the back one, you don't need to do this side. You're just going to do the one side because it's going to lay on top of one another. So I'm going to just put a dab on my palette here. Okay, and I also use black gold brushes by Dynasty. And I'm going to use number 18 shader. And I have extender here just to help me float. I'm going to put some in my little bowl here. Okay, so I'm going to apply extender to my brush. And I like to use a mop brush. This is also by Dynasty, and it's a 1/2 inch. And when I apply floats, I always do like one side at a time so that you don't remove the side that you've just done by moving on. So let's start with the long side. So I'm going to apply extender. Okay, and then I'm going to load my brush, the tip of my brush with Surreal Blue, and just blend on the palette. Okay, and then just lightly do a long brush stroke here. And I'm going to take my mop brush and I'm going to pounce. This is going to soften the paint edge that you have on your surface. And I like to have I'm going to move this, a dry paper towel, and I keep wiping my mop brush. So I just pounce. It just softens up your floats. We're going to add more color to this as well. So again, I'm going to move on to another side and let that dry before I do another edge. Okay, I'm going to apply extender. And make sure your butterfly is dry before you paint along the sides there. Okay, and just soften it up. And I keep wiping my mop brush on paper towel just to keep the water, the excess water or extender off my brush. Okay, I'm gonna, for this here, I'm gonna do the top part. And I might not have to, I might have enough extender in my brush that I don't need to load. Okay, just soften it up. Okay, that one was a little dark. I'm just gonna wash my brush off. Okay, I'm gonna add just some here. That one's still wet. I use a blow dryer just to move along faster. I'll just use my little heat gun. Okay, so when I add paint to my brush, I'm just gonna keep blending it so that you don't have a harsh little line at the edge there of paint. Just soften it up. So it's good to add light floats, and you know, you can darken it if you feel like you need to. So let's just turn this around here. I'm going to do this side because I already added some extender to that edge here. Okay. Okay, so let me just dry this so that we can do the other corners. And I see that I have like a water line right here. I'm just going to wipe this up a little bit. Just with water. There we go. Okay. Now, let's just dry this off. I have my little gun here. Okay, so this one here, I'm gonna add here and to the bottom area. So let's just add some extender here and here. Okay, grab some more blue and just lightly. We're gonna add some more like little watercolor technique in the background. Okay, a little bit here. Okay, I'll move this aside and we'll work on this color, on this tag here. And I don't think it's dry enough, so I'm gonna just pause and I'll be right back. Okay, so I dried it. I'm gonna apply some extender to the corners here. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit more blue. And again, I like to do one side at a time. And if you notice that you have like little bristles that fall off your mop, just sometimes it's best just to wait till it's dry before you try and remove the hair, because you're gonna just streak your paint. So just let it dry. Got a little blob here. Okay. Now, our last one down here. I'm just going to apply extender to my edge here. I should have did that first. Okay. Okay. So now we have our floats done and out of the way. Okay, we're gonna let the stamp ink dry a little bit longer. So I'm gonna demonstrate the stenciling on for the background tag, and that is with Willow Wolf. It's Vintage Corners, and I used the big one over here, and I used the Stencil Pro, the 3/8. So I used the color Primary Magenta. I'm just going to apply a dab on my palette here. And it's dry brushing, okay? So what you do is you load your brush with paint. Just rub on the palette here. And then you're going to rub all the paint off of the paper towel. It's always good to go light than really heavy color. So let's just place this here. And in circular motion, switching directions, you're gonna dry brush magenta onto the surface. Okay, so that leaves like different shading of color onto your surface. So let's go and put this one on an angle. I'm just going to reload my brush, same way. Wipe as much as I can onto the paper towel. And in circular motion, I'm going to, changing directions, apply my paint. See how pretty that is? has different colors in it. Okay, I'm going to add one down here. I'm going to try not to get, let's try it this way. Okay, load my brush again. Oops. And there, so that's it for the background for now. And I'm going to move this aside because we're done with that. Yeah, just move this here. Okay, and then we're going to work on to our design here. And I like to just take a baby wipe, and I'm just going to remove some of the paint off my stencil just until I can wash it with soap, which needs a really bath. Okay. I'm just going to move this aside. Okay, and I'm just going to wipe a little bit of my paint. So just take a baby wipe and just remove a little bit of paint just until you're able to wash it with soap and water. There, move this aside. Okay, excuse me. Now we're going to do the little top flower, and that is done with Cobalt Teal Hue, and I like using a 3/8 angle brush, Black Gold by Dynasty. You can use whatever brush you're comfortable with. Okay. So this is done with some floating, okay? And I'm just going to add water to my brush. You can add extender to if you'd like. It's easier to help float. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to float where the creases are first, and then along the edges. So I load my brush. I don't know if you can see that. I load the corner of my brush, and I'm going to just blend on the palette. Okay, and I'm going to start at the top here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So you're going to go all along the edge. When you get to the tip here, just lift up your brush a little bit. And if you do get water that's or paint that passed the line, you can wipe it, but we're going to add color to this along the bottom anyways. So I'm going to load it again. Okay, and I'm going to go this way here. Now if you find you have harsh lines, I have a smaller mop brush, and I'm just going to soften it up just by the tip here, and keep wiping it on paper towel. Okay, now we're going to add along this bottom here. Let me just turn this around, I'm sorry. So I'm going to just go along the edge here. Lift up my toe, the toe of the brush, just to get to the corner, and just soften it up. Okay, and the bottom one here, I'm going to wet my brush a little bit more. Pick up some extender. Okay, I'm going to do this bottom part here. I'm going to soften this up just a little bit more. I had too much extender to this. Okay. And sometimes I go back and forth between flowers just to let the first layer dry. So we can work on this one and then we'll go back to the blue one, okay? So this one here is done with the primary magenta. I'm gonna just set these here. And again, I add extender and I'm gonna load my brush. Now this color is really dark, just so you know. What I'm gonna do is float the bottom and the inside first. So I'm gonna turn this around. And I'm gonna make sure that I don't lay my hand on the wet paint. So I need to make sure that either I have my hand up or I set it down on a dry spot. So I'm gonna start here. Again, it's okay if you get paint on the outside because we're gonna add like little watercolor. Okay, I'm going to take my mop, just soften it up a little bit here. The top part will be floated as well, so I'm just going to remove a little bit here. Okay, and I'm going to float along the bottom one here. So pick up some extender. Okay, now I went along the edge here. Okay, I turn it around. I'm going to continue making sure that I don't touch my paint. And again, I'm going to lift up my the brush, the corner, just to get the into the corner and just lightly tap. Okay, and like I said, I go back and forth with the flowers just so that it dries in between layers. Okay, let's turn this around. So this one here is still a little wet. Okay, I'm gonna just grab my little heat tool here. I'm just gonna dry this up a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to the blue flower. The same color, we're going to use Cobalt Teal Hue. And I just want to add some color to some of the little tips here, okay? Because the white is really your highlight here. Okay, for this one here, I just want a little bit on the top part here, making sure this is dry. Okay, I'm going to start here. And my floats aren't as like wide. They're a little shorter. Oops, I have a little bit of pink in my my mop brush. Okay, I'm going to take just my paintbrush here. Wipe some of that pink off. Okay, I'm going to redo this float here. Okay, I'm going to have to use a different mop brush for my blue color. There. Okay, for this one here, I went just along the tip here. Okay, and a little bit over here, just a corner. this off. Extender. Okay, I'm gonna lightly just go from this section here. Okay, and the tip here. Sorry, I moved my wood around. Okay, and I'm just going to go along the little edge here. So I don't do my floats along that edge too wide so that I can have a little bit of highlights, which is the original color of your surface. Okay, I'm going to go down here a little bit here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to move back to the pink color. And I'm going to change my mop brush. I should have brought another one down with me. I need more extender. Okay, so now I float the top part. So moving this way here. So I'm gonna just go along the edge. Okay, and do the bottom part right here. Of the corner. Now for here, I kind of walked it a little bit just to allow it to be fully covered, like the petal right here. And I just dabbed a little bit. Okay, and we're gonna darken this up after. Just let this dry. Okay. Now, going back to the blue one here, I darkened the floats by using cobalt turquoise hue. Looks dry. Okay. So where we added the floats along the creases here, we're going to darken it up. Okay, so I'm going to start over here. We're down to here. And just going to wipe this off. I'm going to add my big mop brush here. Soften this up. Okay, I'm just going to got some over here. Okay, and I'm going to go along here. Just want to clean my brush. Okay, so let's darken this one here up a little bit. And I always wipe my mop brush just to remove some of the water excess. Okay, let's turn this around, and I'm going to go along the edge over here. Okay, I'm going to just remove a little bit of paint I got over the edge here. Okay, and this one right here. My mop brush is a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the paint here. It's really easy to remove the paint with another brush. Okay, now let's leave that dry. We're going to move on to, I'm going to have to dry the red one first. Okay, one moment. Okay, so it is dark, so what I do is I'm going to refloat the top part with the same color. Okay. And I'm not going to probably use as much water. Okay, so I'm going to go back and just float a little darker along the edge here. And the bottom part. Okay, and we're going to darken the bottom with a little bit of black and magenta. Okay, so we're going to let that dry a little bit more so we can go on to the little green seeds. So that is done with green gold. I love this color because it's got, you can tell it's got different colors in here. Okay, and what I did is I floated the top part here, letting it run. So the bottom part of the seeds were a little bit more white. Okay, let me just load this up. And so what I did was I went from the edge here and I kind of walked it along to the other end. So I kind of let the bottom area white. So again, I'm going to do it this way. So I kind of started at one end and just like walk it and leave the bottom again white. And that's it for the little green ones. So we'll still let the red flower dry. We can do the little monarch up here. And I use vermilion orange and a little bit of Hansa yellow light. Okay, so I'll put both colors on my palette here. So what I did was I highlighted the top area with the yellow along the edge, and I leaving the little white dots, not touching it with yellow. So let me turn this. I'm going to be careful not to put my hand on there. Okay, so I did the top yellow. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to add orange. Okay, I'm going to leave that dry. And the blue butterfly, I used cobalt teal hue. So what I did was I picked up with again with my angular brush here, and so I floated along the edge, but I also walked it so that it's dark along the edge here, but light on the top part. So you see a little bit of white. Okay, turning it this way here. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more. So it'll be dark on one along the body of the butterfly and leaving the top a little bit lighter. And we're going to darken that with another blue. Okay, so my yellow should be done. So I'm going to pick up the vermilion orange. Not too much water here. Okay, and so now I'm going to float along the body of the butterfly and making it, the two colors blend a little bit. So right here along the body. So now I have two different colors of, in my butterfly. For the little white dots, I used titanium white from the acrylic fluid here. So I'm gonna just pick some up here. And I used, it's called it's a little spotter. So it's very small. And I'm just gonna wet it. I'm gonna pick up some white and making sure not too much water in my brush. And what I'm gonna do is paint those little white dots. So I have some dots here and along the bottom here. You can add some to the body as well. Okay. And I have this little section here, I just noticed that I have a little bit of orange in there. So it's gonna have to be a very fine float. So right here, I added a little bit of orange in there. I just used a corner of my angle brush just to add it in there. Okay. So my blue butterfly is done. So I float with the cobalt turquoise hue. And go back to my palette here. So my float's not going to be as wide. So again, I'm just going to go along the body just to add more shade to it. There you go. And that's it for the little blue butterfly. You can add little white dots as well. A little spotter here. I'm going to add some white. So I have like little dots on the wings there. Don't have to add a lot of pressure, just little dabs. Okay, I think my red's still wet, so let me just dry it up a little bit. Okay, now I used the carbon black, and I'm going to show you this on my palette here. Okay, so when I say a mix of magenta and a mix of black, so I have my two colors here. Okay, so I have my angle brush. So I load with the magenta first. Okay, I'm gonna just blend it on my palette, and I'm gonna pick up just a tad of black. What I want to do is like a purple color. Okay, so when you blend these two colors together, you're gonna get purple. Okay, so I want to do the inside, the bottom part here and along the bottom here. Move that aside. So I'm gonna put those two colors together. And you can walk it a little bit to go a little higher. Okay, I'm gonna just clean up here. Okay, I'm gonna take my mop brush and I'm just gonna soften this up just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna reload. So I'm gonna clean up my brush and reload for the bottom area here. Okay, so picking up magenta first. I'm gonna just pick up magenta first, blend on my palette. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of black. And if you see that it's too much black, pick up a little bit more magenta just to make it a nice purple color. Okay, so start from here. And picking up from the toe. And I'm gonna take my mop brush and just soften it up. Okay. I know this one's a little darker, but it depends how much water you add to your paint. Okay. Now, once those are dry, I did add some little interference colors which we're gonna do after. Okay, so I find my butterfly is not dark enough here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Micron extra long detail brush. It's a 10-0, and I'm gonna wet it. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of black here, and I load it all the way to the ferrule. Make sure there's no water, and I roll it so that you have a nice point. Okay, so I don't have my little antennas didn't pop in here, so I'm just gonna do my antenna. I'm gonna paint my little body because I can't see my body, and that's only because my ink didn't fully go through. So let's just trace out the butterfly here. And get a little bit more paint. Make sure my other paint's not wet. So I'm gonna go along the edge here. I just find it's not dark enough. Oops. Okay. Now, I'm gonna trace my Hello Spring and I will be right back. Okay, I traced and transferred my Hello Spring, and I'm gonna use the extra long detail liner for this, and I'm gonna use the carbon black, so I'm gonna add a fresh little dab of paint here. Okay, and some extender. So I like to dip my bristle in the extender and blend my whole brush in my puddle of paint, fully loaded. And again, I roll the tip to have a fine point. So making sure that I don't have water on my ferrule. Okay, and just so you know, I'm not an expert on lettering. So I go very lightly. Now to add pressure, these big lines, you're going to add pressure to your brush. So I go very light, okay? I take my time. I don't rush, okay? And I do like to move my piece around when I'm lettering. Okay, Again, I'm not an expert on lettering, so I take my time. And I load my brush often with paint and form the tip. I start from one end here, and right here, this is where I'm going to add pressure by pushing on my brush and then just releasing it to add a finer little line. Okay. And then I'm just going to go back here just to make this a little finer. Okay, this one here is fine, so I start one end, and then I'm gonna just move this. So again, I'm gonna allow pressure just to add this line a little thicker, and then just release it when you get to the end. I'm gonna start from here, and those two together. You can remove the graphite line once your paint is dry with a eraser. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more paint. Now for the L's, the top part is a little thicker, so you can just add pressure right to the top and then release it when you get to the curve here. Okay, I'm going to go back up to the top of that L and just add a little line here. Okay, now you can always go back and touch up, like say this L here. I just want to fix it up, so just go back with your little brush, and here I just want to fix up my little L. Okay, so I'll erase the graphite line once it's dry. Okay, in the spring, okay, and I'm going to just move this here, add a little bit more extender. Okay, so I'm going to add a little pressure here just to make this a little thicker. Right here. This takes practice. I've really haven't done much lettering, so I'm a little rusty on it. Okay, and the P, I have a thick line here, so I'm gonna just go a couple times over this. Pressure and just release. The R. Pressure. Whoops, I totally didn't do that one right. I'm gonna just take my little brush here, just work down this little corner here. I'm gonna add color. There we go. Okay, almost done with the lettering. Add pressure to the G. And again, I can always touch it up after, just to give you an idea how to do the lettering, that's all. Add pressure. There. Okay, so I have my Hello Spring. I can make them a little wider too if I wanted to. I'll go back and make them just a little wider. Okay, so, whoops. The next part is adding like a watercolor technique. So I need to dry my lettering before we do this little part here. So let me just dry this off. Okay, and what I also did was I went back and I floated underneath these just so that it pops up a little bit more. And it was with cerulean blue. Cerulean. Okay, I'm going to add a fresh little petal here, and I'm going to use my angle brush. Okay, so I just went like underneath in a couple of little spots along the edges. So let's just loop this up. Okay, so my butterfly went along the bottom here. And I stopped along just the corner of it. Whoop. I dropped my brush. Okay, just soften it up. Okay. Let's go over here. It doesn't have to be really neat. Just wash this off. I need a little bit more water. My little brush here. Okay, from the corner here. Whoops. Got some on my seed. Okay, stop there. And over here, I think I went like a little underneath. Just clean it up. Over here. It's going to be watercolor after anyways, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Underneath the butterfly. Okay, and so we got that done. I'm going to add our little glitter to our, it's called interference, so it adds a little sparkle to your color. So when you move it, like on this blue here, when you move it on different angles, you'll see purple, you'll see blue. It's like really nice. I added some on the butterfly. I added some magenta on this, and I added some green on that. So it's completely dry, so we can add magenta interference. And this one here is blue, and this one is green. So I'll just put some on my palette. And what did I take? I took a little brush. Oops, I got a paint on here. I think I forgot my little brush. I'll just use my little wash brush here. Okay, so I got the magenta, and you can already see on my palette some of the purple that's in this. It's so pretty. Okay, so you're going to put it all over this flower here. I'm trying not to pass the lines because I don't really want it on my surface that doesn't have a stamp. Okay, so that's the magenta. So you can apply it really thick. It'll dry and then it'll just sparkle. Okay, I'm gonna take my blue. Mix the colors up well before you apply it on your palette. So I have the blue. So I'm gonna put this on my butterfly. Okay, and I'm gonna apply it all over this blue flower. And I got it all. Okay, I'm gonna rinse off my brush and we're gonna add the green to the little seeds. I added a thick layer, it's clear. Okay, so that's gonna dry. So I'm gonna take, while that dries, I'm gonna take my back tag here, and I'm gonna show you how to do this little water technique. Okay, so I'm gonna just move this aside. Okay, so you need magenta, primary magenta, and you also need the cerulean blue. Okay, so I'm going to put those on my palette, fresh little dabs. Okay, and I'm going to use my number 10 shader. And so what you do is, okay, you wet your brush. I have water on here. So I'm going to just dab some puddles on my surface here. So for this one here, you do want puddles, okay? So then I'm going to take magenta. I'm going to put some on my tip here. And then I'm going to dab these colors together and let the water, let the paint run, okay? So if you find that it's too much, wet your brush with water and let it like run, and just dab it till you're happy with your color puddle. And then when it dries, it'll blend different little shades there. Okay, so I have a puddle here. I'm going to pick up some blue, and then I'm just going to add it over here, and then that's going to dry. I'm going to put some over here. I don't need to do a whole lot in the background because it's going to be hiding behind the other one. Okay, so I picked up with the toe of my brush here. Okay, so this one here I'm going to let dry. I find like I got too much here. Okay, now this should be okay. I'll start from the top area. Okay, so I'm going to add a puddle here and pick up some primary magenta, and see how it just makes blobs of paint. So you can let it run, just move it around. You can even just dab it here and there, okay, underneath the words. I'm going to go make a puddle here. I'm just going to try not to get it on my ink project there. I'm going to add some here. See how the puddle just makes it like splatter. It's really hard to explain. Oops, I didn't add a puddle here, so let me just make one. We can go over here. Okay, a little bit underneath the butterfly here. Again, if you find you got too much, you can just wash your brush off and just wet it. Okay, here, I got this one here, just to show you a little example here. You can add as much color as you want. If you don't if you like more red or more blue, it's totally up to you. Okay, I think I got quite a bit of the red, so now I'm going to move on to my blue here. Pick up some blue. Just take the other toe. There's some over here. Oops, I forgot to put some water here. Here. You can put some more onto the side. Okay, I'll put a little bit more here, and then I think I'm happy with this. So when it starts to dry, it's like you can see right here, it's like little watermarks. It's really cute. Here you have like where it's already drying, it's watermarks. Okay, so I think I have quite a bit on here. You can add the stencil if you wish. You don't have to. This one here has, it's from Studio R12, and it's called Underline Accents. They have 5 different little layouts of accents. I had used this one. We can use a different one just so I can show you. So let me just move this aside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this because I have a puddle there. Okay, I'm going to use my stencil brush, and I used carbon black for that part. So let's try this little pretty one right here. So I'm not going to add those little dots at the end. Let me grab some tape so that I can cover the holes up. Okay, so I have painter's tape here. We're going to cover those little dots just so that they don't go on to the project. So I just covered them up. There. Okay, so another thing too, if you don't want your stencil to move while you're actually stenciling, you can grab another piece of tape. Okay, and then just place it. Okay, and then I'm going to lay it here. So that way it doesn't move while you're doing this, okay? I need a little bit more black here. But you know what? I think I'm going to do my border blue. I just want to change it up a little bit. So I'm going to use Surreal Blue, which I already have on my palette. And I need another piece of paper towel here. Okay, so I'm going to load up my bristle. I'm going to wipe as much as I can. And I'm going to go in circles. Just dry brush it on. It's always best to go light and then just keep applying until you're happy with your solid color. Okay, so that's very faint. So let me pick up some more again and we're gonna redo that. Okay, load and dry it up on paper towel. Okay, let me just see. This is dark enough. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Okay, so look at this very, very nice blue compared to the black. Okay, now I didn't spatter any colors, but you know what? You can spatter. I can show you how to do that. We can spatter with some blue. Yeah, we'll use the same blue. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't have a fan brush with me. Oh, yes, I do. Okay, so I like using a fan brush. Right now I have the Magnolian, but you can use any one, okay? So you're gonna add water to this. Okay, so I add water, and I know my palette's very dirty right now. I'm gonna blend it into my paint, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand above it. I'm gonna take another brush and I'm just gonna tap the ferrule, okay? I don't want a whole lot, I just want a little bit just to add color to this. Okay, so I'm okay with that amount of spatter. Let me just add a little bit more here. Okay, so by adding a lot of water to my my brush here, and then I spattered this, well, it was still wet there, so I kind of added like a little smudge spatter, and here too. So I'm gonna take like a little baby wipe, and I'm just gonna dab my spatter just so that they're all they all look equal. Little spatters. Okay, so once your project is dry, okay, I want to show you how to base coat the side here, because you don't want paint on top, a different colored paint on top of your surface. So what I'm trying to say here is I have my little foam brush, and I'm gonna pick up again the same blue. I kind of like that blue. Okay, so what I do with this one, I have my foam brush. I'm gonna wet it. Okay, I'm gonna wet it. I'm gonna dab a little excess water by just pinching it in between the paper towel. I'm going to lay my brush flat, and I'm going to drag it into my paint here. Okay, and I don't want a puddle, because if you have a puddle, then it's going to overgo onto the top part. Okay, so I'm going to pick it up, and this is going to need a couple coats because this paint is not as thick as Americana paint, okay? But I just want to show you, and MDF board kind of drags it a little bit more than any other wood. So you're just going to lay it flat, and you're going to base coat it. Again, the MDF board, well, it drags the paint. Okay, so what I do want to show you is that by doing the blue, and this is white, you're not seeing the blue on top of my surface, so you're not ruining it. So like say you were to paint the back and had a different color, so then the paint would be on this, just the edge, and not on the flat surface, okay? So you can do that all the way around your surface. And then what you're gonna do, once it's dry, I like using the Media Ultra Matte Varnish. If you can see on here, there's no shine. It's just flat. It's a matte finish. And then once it's dry, I like to glue them together. But what I did for this one here, I kind of glued it too close to the edge so I can't see the back too much. So what I should have did was I should have glued it, but make sure the holes are connected together, but laid out a little bit further apart. So once that's glued together, I have a cute little washer that I glued on the top part here. So I glued the washer on the top, and then I had jute string from the dollar store, and I hung it with jute string. And I made a big knot at the end. So that's a different type of surface that I wanted to show you how to do. I really hope you enjoyed this project. And keep following me on YouTube. Thank you for joining me.